Welcome everyone to the first of two meetings called One with Nature, One Together. That will be the start of the creation of the Wisdom Mural. We have with us today Grandmother Francine Prayer. Grandmother Francine is the Algonquin elder who is blessing the creation of this mural for this Algonquin land, unceded territory in which we are today.
Thank you, Chimiquete. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I am speaking to you today from unceded Algonquin territory. So I'd like to acknowledge the earth, the provider of all, acknowledge the water. We need to acknowledge Grandfather Sun and Grandmother Moon and acknowledge all of our relations. So I'm not going to say anymore. I would like to introduce our first speaker today, which will be Alice Wong from China. Welcome, Alice.
This is to like a New Year's greeting. May your longevity allows you to enjoy all that nature can bring. Happy New Year. Okay, I'm going to start now. I hope everyone had read my bio. There is one thing I forgot to mention. I also took a course at the University at Carleton. The title is Natural History. It's about history of nature, a biology class that was taught by an amazing professor. I now know how to identify a few birds. The blue bird is a blue jay. The red bird is a cardinal. So it helped with the identifying birds. I will start by telling you my last trip to the dentist. He recommended that I should have all my wisdom teeth removed because I don't really need them to chew. And they're so far back in my mouth and it's very hard to clean. I said, no, they are my wisdom teeth. And if they were removed, I will no longer be wise. So does anyone here has their wisdom tooth removed? Please raise your hand.
Me.
Oh my, okay. Okay, but no worries. To make up for that, look at your hair. Any strain of gray hair you have represented, you are still full of wisdom. And of course, wisdom comes with age, and also you get senior discount. Okay, now show and tell. The word wisdom, it's in Chinese. If you Google it, it would show you would see both two words. And the first word on the top part, it means knowledge. Right underneath, it means the sun. The second word, it has two similar strokes. It means abundance. That means it's times two. The middle part represents snow, which is purity. And the bottom third part represents the heart. So the meaning of those two words, the makeup of those two words means with the illumination of the sun and the purity of heart, there lies the abundance of knowledge. So that's us. The Chinese written language very frequently associate nature in their components. In the culture, we also associate our diet closely with the change of seasons. In the spring, freshly sprung out young greens and vegetables. In the summer, we consume food that nature allows us to grow successfully and plentiful. For example, watermelon, cucumber, leafy vegetables. And in the fall, after harvesting the field, which is mostly grain, we feast on dumplings and noodles. In the wintertime, stomach warming comfort food, mostly with pumpkins, turnips, root vegetables, and a lot of steamed high gluten cakes. For ailment or sickness, we also rely on the plants that nature provided for us. Chinese medicine is mostly herbal. We believe in boosting and keeping the bodies healthy to fight off disease of any kind. A few good examples is ginseng, cinnamon, and also ginger. These are widely used in Western medicine as supplements as well. The other 5 characters is the 5 elements. It is metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Without any one of them, we simply would not be able to survive. Its theory is also how traditional Chinese medicine is practiced. Metal, it is not just an element to make tools. It can also be consumed. Have anyone ever eaten a very expensive chocolate sprinkled with gold shavings? One of the mineral is also in our blood, which is iron. Wood, trees, forest, all plants and vegetations. They can be used to build shelter, produce the oxygen we breathe, and eaten as food. For example, cinnamon comes from the bark of trees. Water, our body is made up of 60% of water. It also comes as rain, snow, and even the rainbow. With it, we have streams, rivers, and oceans. It quenches our thirst, cools us down, can generate energy, and also provide a home for all sea creatures and aquatic vegetation. We need it most to grow our food. Fire, it keeps us warm, produces energy, and according to some beliefs, it also cleanses our soul and warns off evil spirits. Earth, besides this is where we live, which is on earth. As an element, its soil is what we use to grow our food, build shelters, have mountains and valleys, and sandy beaches. I should also include the sun, moon, stars, and the universe. The solar systems give us the 4 seasons, controls the weather, provides warmth, and of course, the northern lights. As we can see, all living forms depend on and come from nature. The pandemic we are experiencing now, we should have seen it coming. The human population exploded. The air and water are polluted. The massive clear cut of the Amazon forest, which is the lungs of the world, and we are destroying all of them. As a result, flood, hurricane, forest fire, drought, and famine are rampant. It is just not sustainable. I can give you an example of a fish bowl. One fish is fine. If there are 20 fish in the same bowl, you can imagine what's going to happen. They all gone belly up. I think the COVID-19 is the way Mother Nature is calling for help. Stop. She needs a breather. We can see that when there is a lockdown, the air becomes cleaner. Even the wildlife are happier. This gives nature a break to try to recover just a little. Maybe it is Mother Nature's way to thin out the population. The coronavirus is also the first warning. There might be more and deadlier viruses to come if we don't start doing something about it. This is for Claudia. I think when the Almighty created humans, Claudia was there as a facilitator. She suggested make them beautiful and bold, not like the drabby winter in Ottawa. Here we are, black, white, brown, red, and yellow, plus many more colors inside our body. Take a pin and stick it in your finger. The blood comes out is red. Here we are, all different, but actually all the same. Nature is very fragile. We have to protect it. If nature dies, we all die. I hope it is not too late. And before I pass over the video to the next presenter, there is a very good documentary titled, If You Love This Planet. It was made in 1982, almost 39 years ago. Take time to watch it and refresh your memory about how fragile is nature. The producer, Edward Laurent, he won an Oscar making this film. He is also from Ottawa and a friend. Unfortunately, he passed away 2 years ago. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. That was wonderful. Our next speaker is Bibiana Nalwiindi Seaborn from Zambia.
Thank you so much. I am seated here and I feel like I should be jumping out there dancing, hearing the presentation. Hearing that gives me energy to be who I am and where I am now, and to continue my life in a meaningful way, a very meaningful way. And that's connecting my culture, my traditional culture in Zambia, where we have all kinds of animals and birds and fish and you name it, we have it flying all over the place. But I would like specifically to look at my culture and how we connect to nature, water. Water is very important. Without a drink of water, when I'm dancing, when I am swimming, when I'm doing sweeping around the house or shoveling snow, afterwards I need a drink of water to sustain me. And that's how my culture is connected to water. We have to maintain and sustain water. We don't have to dump in now plastic bags in our rivers. Plastic bags in our rivers should be out because here they destroy the important element that fits into us, water, to keep us going, to give us the energy, and also to be able to tell our stories to the young generation of people from around the world, because they are the ones that are going to carry on from where I am now. I'm now in Canada, enjoying myself, dancing, shoveling snow, and I go to many immigrant communities, and I dance. And one of the things that I do, my introduction is always to go, you. When that sound comes, people know, it has to be someone from Zambia. A certain community in Zambia connects me to the other people. By connecting me to the other people, it makes me stronger because they will also be talking about, in my community, this is what we use. In my community, this is wherever you are. This is what we use. And so culture and water is very important. I do that, and then I have to drink water, and then tell my story. My story comes as a gift. It's a special gift from my ancestors. people who are long gone, but guess what? The history is there, and we have to continue the history. And I have been provided that energy and strength and resilience to continue with that energy so that it goes to the little ones all over the world, and they will continue telling their stories too of water. One other thing that connects water too, also in my clan in Zambia, I come from the rabbit. It jumps all over the place. I'm a rabbit. I jump all over the place telling my stories, then I go to the next. But I have to maintain that through the energy that I get from our ancestors, and our ancestors have to keep me going, but I have to respect them. I have to honor them. I have to literally kneel down and say, thank you for connecting me to water, connecting me to the energy that I have so that I can continue. And also the other element that we see, I don't know, but this will be hard to see, is a feather. This is a feather of an eagle. An eagle is very important. An eagle is a powerful bird. When it flies over water, it's beautiful. Everybody stops and watches go over. And what it's doing is flowing somewhere else so that our energies can continue. We have continued flowing with the eagle, and we see it when it's flying over water. And then when it turns and comes somewhere else, if it comes over to your house, it's a message. When it comes over to your house, it's a message. The message is be strong. There's something that we need to solve, or there's something that you need to build on. There's something that you need to keep sharing with the little ones, with the wider world, with the people that you meet all over the place, whether it be in this community or in other communities. And when in Zambia, one other aspect of the eagle is that when it flies, you see how beautiful it is? The leaf, I mean the wings, just it's singing at the same time. It's singing. And when it's singing, it makes sure that we are there. We have to keep it going and spread it to the other people. I am so proud that in my own village in Zambia, because of the clan system that we have, some people, I say I am from the rabbit. Some people are from the eagle clan. And when we are meeting or talking and people say, I'm from the eagle clan. Oh, the eagle. People won't even say much about it. They just, oh, the eagle. They know that the eagle is powerful. The eagle can bring energy. The eagle can also foresee what it is that's going on in the community and correct it. By correcting it, we get that knowledge from my ancestors to keep those stories going. And when it goes over the trees, oh my goodness, it's another story. Or it turns out going to the other side, people will say, ooh, something is happening the other side or the other village. But we all know that from the history that we have from our ancestors. The other thing that I shouldn't forget is that when we talk about the eagle and the water and all these are in the planet, and being part of my culture, I have a responsibility by sharing it with other people, by sharing it with my community, by sharing it with the younger generation. It brings me a sense of growth, a sense of courage, and a desire to fly like an eagle. and also to grow and explore what else is there that we can be part of. The butterflies will come along, but all this means that we are in it together. And I am so grateful that I am able to be here and still be able to share my dancing and be able to share my culture with nature, with the water, with the eagle, with the butterflies, with the rabbits, with the snakes. We have to maintain and ensure that we don't throw plastic bags in our rivers. We don't throw things that will destroy our rivers. And also when you see, if you are by the river, when the river is flowing and you are by the river, when the water comes flowing and there is a stone, if there's a stone or some element that disturb, it will just go phew, up and then it comes down. That means calm down. We have to learn to calm down. Now we are in the middle of pandemic, right? We have to learn to calm down. And what will make us, what I tell my young ones is to remember who I am, where I come from, and why it's important to be part of this group, connecting, telling our stories with all. And I have to remember that I have to share these symbols. They have to see the ego, symbolism of life, symbolism of power, symbolism of bringing news, symbolism of getting together to work on what is important for us. But also that by moving, the water moves, right? And by dancing, you're also moving. That's giving us energy, growth, strength. We have to keep healthy. So culture and nature, for me, with these elements, just makes it more real. It's more real that I'm able to talk about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bibiana. It was really interesting. I'm happy to now introduce you Jaime Baquero from Colombia.
So, grandmother Francine Pryor, thank you very much for having us, people from all the corners of the world, here in Algonquin land. Chiribiquete from the imagination. Why? Because nobody can go there. It is a restricted area and it's a sacred place. Only a specific research is allowed by natural parks authorities. Chiribiquete is located within the departments of Baupés, Caquetá, Guaviare, and Meta in South Colombia. How it was discovered, Chiribiquete? It was more than 30 years ago when Carlos Castaño, the director of the natural parks in Colombia, have to travel to Amacayacu, south of Colombia. And when they were leaving San Jose del Guaviare in a very small plane, they were surprised by a huge storm that forced them to deviate. The flight plan changed, forcing them to change altitude. The storm lasted a while, and it was then when that majestic mountain range appeared on the horizon. Before the eyes of Carlos Castaño, in the middle of the jungle, it was this imposing teepee, a broad plateau characteristic of the Guyana Shield. It was a lost world in the absolute dimension of Carlos Castaño's words. After such magnificent experience and having the geographical coordinates of the site, he organized his first expedition to Chiribiquete. It was for Carlos Castaño one thing to see this magnificent from the air, but another thing was for him to be in front of it with his feet on the ground. One of the defining features of Chiribiquete is the presence of the tepuis, tabletop mountains that are in the middle of the jungle. This was what they saw when they were visiting Chiribiquete for the first time. The tepuis outstand in the forests and result in dramatic scenery that is reinforced by its remoteness, inaccessibility, and exceptional conservation. Many years of research were conducted discovering fauna and flora endemic of the site. Given the importance of such a discovery, the National Parks of Colombia began the process for UNESCO to include Chiribiquete as a World Heritage Site. To be included on the World Heritage Site, sites must be outstanding universal value and meet at least 1 out of 10 selection criteria. Chiribiquete met with 3 of these criteria. It is an extensive area, 4.2 million hectares, and a particularly significant value of this protected area is its high degree of naturalness, which makes it one of the most important wilderness areas in the world. Natural, ecological, and cultural heritage of the humanity. It was back in 2018 when Chiribiquete was included in the list of World Heritage Sites. And this park, it is very important because of it's a confluence point of 4 biogeographical provinces: Orinoquia, Guyana, Amazonia, and north of the Andes. Meaning that in this area, we find species that come from all over the area, from the north, the south, the east, and the west. And it's a point of connectivity and preservation of the biodiversity of the whole area. It is impressive, the diversity, flora and fauna that is found in this region, as also is impressive the diversity of aquatic ecosystems that are in the area. This ancestral treasure is in the Colombian Amazonia, but it does belong to the Great Amazonia that includes 7 countries: Brazil, Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, Guyana, Peru, Suriname, and Venezuela. One of the aspects that most caught the attention of the researchers was the reddish stain that they could see from far away. When they approached the walls of the tepuis, a magnificent surprise was in front of their eyes. Today, they have record about or around 75,000 figures that had been made by the indigenous people on these walls of the tepuis from 20,000 years BCA. They have found petroglyphs that were made by uncontacted peoples, and it goes back to the late 70s. So as we can see, the size of these murals is considerable, and important to notice also that they are very high. Some of these petroglyphs, they are at more than 100 meters from the ground. So because of these petroglyphs, Chiribiquete is a natural reference for many indigenous communities that live in and around the park. These paintings depict hunting scenes, battles, dances, and ceremonies, as well as flora and fauna species. According to information that government had, authorities from natural parks, the oldest human settlements before this archaeological discovery in Chiribiquete dated back 12,000 years. C14 tests indicate that the petroglyphs found in Chiribiquete dated back 20,000 years. These findings changed the archaeological history, creating a new explanatory model about the first human settlements in the region. There is a particular representation that is found in many of them, is the jaguar, a symbol of power and fertility. The jaguar, at the top of the food chain, is the great predator, and its existence is key in the ecosystems it inhabits. The jaguar helps keeping the balance in the ecosystem, playing an important role in natural selection. Claudia, do you have something to add?
Yes, and thank you for the opportunity. I have a beautiful paragraph that I would like to read that has to do with the meaning of the jaguar. There is the sacred animal, not just in the Amazon indigenous communities, but also in many communities in Latin America, from Mexico down. And it says, before this, there was the sea, then the earth emerged as a city of stone. The anaconda came down from the Milky Way and became a river, and the jaguar with the gold on its skin came from the sun to take care of the jungle. Time didn't exist. Day and night were enough. Tapirs, deer, blue macaws, and all the beings that emerged from the water appeared. Then there was the human being. He occupied the city of stone, and with the sacred plants, he learned to transform himself into a jaguar. The sacred plants unleashed a navel of luminous filaments that communicate each living being with the whole. Chiribiquete is the cosmic Maloka, the cosmic house of the Jaguar man, the house of the Father Sun, the house of the Milky Way, that is the cosmic canoe, the vehicle of the sun to reach the earth and find a place of origin that, according to the petroglyphs and the Amazonian indigenous myths, is in Chiribiquete.
The Maloka of the jaguar. The indigenous communities which are not directly present on the site consider Chiribiquete as a sacred place that cannot be visited and that should be preserved unaltered. The heart of the Amazon, with the capacity to produce very important environmental services, not only for Colombia and the region, but for the entire planet. Just the size of the Amazon in Colombia is as big as France, and it is why this area is so important for the global climate control. There are not direct threats to the park itself, but there are threats to the buffer zone as agriculture and road building move closer to the buffer zone boundary. One of the main problems that exists in the area is deforestation. But to these days, according to the regulations, this area is restricted. There are not planes flying around and nobody can go inside. And they are protected, the unencountered people that live in the area. It is important for the preservation. Each one of the trees of the Amazon is a biological bomb producing considerable amounts of water and oxygen and consuming also huge amounts of carbon dioxide. The Amazonian mythology tells us that the god of the sun found the center of the planet Earth in Chiribiquete. Is it a coincidence that latitude 0 degrees, 0 minutes and 0 seconds is in Chiribiquete? That is a good reflection. Also, I would like to finish this presentation with some quotes and reflections. And this is what is happening in Chiribiquete with the people that are living there for thousands of years. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change that survives. That's Charles Darwin. Humankind needs nature. Nature doesn't need humankind. When natural balance is broken, nature takes care of it. It's natural selection. This pandemic has forced us to be more eco-responsible, change our consumption habits, and know that it is possible to live with less. We have to remind ourselves that the world has not met any of the biodiversity targets set for 2020. Consequently, nature acts. Thank you very much.
I have so many questions and I know it's not the time yet. I'm really pleased to present our next presenter, Professor Rao Nanduri from India. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. And thanks to everyone who have become my friends this evening. Before I say anything, a metaphor is cooking up in my mind, which will cover everything that I would like to say, and that is, we are the petals of the same flower. Imagine a flower. If you want to include the whole of humanity, it's 1,000-petaled flower. It has a reed, and it is connected to the elements. It cannot exist without the elements, and they are mutually dependent. So imagine that we are all connected. All we have to ask is, how? In what way? The earth, Mother Earth, we have sprung from it, and that's the connection, and we have flowered. So with that, I am very happy to be part of this project, particularly when it is titled Wisdom, Knowledge Keepers. What brilliant ideas. I have spent all my life, I have been a professor for more than 60 years, and all I have learned is that everything is beautiful, everything is sacred, nothing is to be looked down upon. It might interest you that India is the only civilization that have survived with a continuity that no other civilization had the luck or the good fortune. There have been 42 or 43 civilizations which arose, prospered, became very big, and then they all perished. And India is the one, for thousands of years, kept its values, its knowledge, its wisdom, and people were carrying that knowledge, and that's what I want to talk to all of you, how it is connected. What were the few principles that they were following that made this thing work, the civilization together, without a break, without loss of knowledge, without loss of its prosperity. So there are a few ideas. Each one of them is connected to nature and its preservation and its worship. Most importantly, worship. Worship is not merely respect. It is giving your all with all that respect and admiration and adoration. So it is not enough to say, I respect the environment, but to worship is to truly understand the entire being of the universe and your part in it. So very quickly, I want to discuss a few principles that the Indian civilization has given itself and to the world. I have traveled all over the world, and wherever I went, I was seeing the traces of the knowledge that was transmitted from India by the travelers out of India or by the travelers who came into India and took back to their own countries. The greatest of the principles that I wish to talk to you about is what is called non-harm. Some people loosely translate it as non-violence, ahimsa. But the correct way to read that is non-harm. Do not harm any living entity. You all know that Buddhism and Jainism are these two religions that came out of this non-violence. And we also know how many American Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, and so many others have followed this principle of non-harm as a political weapon and brought about great changes. That should give us some pause to think about the effectiveness. India never invaded any other country. It went through phases of violence, but it grew wiser and adopted non-harm or non-violence. The second principle that India has given itself and the world is unity in diversity. As we look around, we find everything different. Men are short or tall, or different colors, different levels of prosperity, different levels of knowledge, different levels of ignorance. So there is tremendous diversity that we observe. But when we really look into it, there is a unity that binds this diversity. So wisdom is to find that unity, the items that are similar among all of us, not stress the differences, because at the base, we are the same flower connected to the same reed or branch. The third principle that the Indian civilization gave itself is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. All that means is the whole world is a family. By the word family, we mean connected, same source. So, if we are all connected, what's all this trouble about? What are we bickering about? What are we fighting about? Family members should be helping each other, sharing. And so that idea of a family, the whole world, is the concept of inclusiveness. Nobody is excluded. Everybody. And I go to the extent of saying it does not apply to only human beings. It applies to all creatures, plants, animals, rivers, mountains. Everything is connected. And that is wisdom. The next one is, of course, I'm very, very briefly narrating to you all because of the time constraints. The next one is the principle that every guest is a god. Anybody who visits your house is to be treated like a god. Now, this comes from the idea that everybody is divine and everything is divine. Nothing is unsacred. Everything is sacred and everybody is sacred. So when somebody in India, people have a habit of not making appointments. They just come and visit you. And the host will have to treat that guy as a god because no one knows how divine he is. It is safe to treat everybody as an element of the divinity, universal divinity, cosmic divinity. So this gives us respect to the visitor and giving of ourselves, being hospitable, being generous, and so on. The next one is, of course, spirituality, the path to liberation. India has long held the view that this body is merely a temporary garb or dress for our soul. If we die, all that means is we have discarded the dress, but we'll be entering into another dress. But if we want to cut off this journey from one life to another, we must find out liberation, enlightenment. And how does that come about? Self-knowledge, seeking self-knowledge. That means contemplation, spirituality, meditation. A little later, I'm going to talk about the greatest symbol of the dancing Shiva or Nataraja, and I'll give you some more ideas there for our understanding. Then there is the great principle of what is called dharma. Dharma is the principle that holds the universe together. Everything is in its place. The cosmos, the countless universes, the earth, the planets, the people, the animals, everything is in harmony, in balance. At least it should be. If some force, like the humans, disturb that balance, it has to be restored. So the principle of dharma is that which supports righteousness, the earth, the planets, the universe, and that which nourishes It promotes that life. And that kind of thing is an emphasis on duty, not on rights. So for 30,000 years or more, if people have been trying to sustain this planet, they have to emphasize duties rather than rights. It is my right to destroy. It is my right to make myself as prosperous as possible. That's what the utilitarians in England said. And that ever since, the earth has been plundered like there is no tomorrow, like we have no more children. And that's a very unfortunate thing. Therefore, this principle of dharma, that is, I have a duty towards my family, towards myself, towards my society, towards my Mother Earth. I'm full of duties. Only in fulfilling my duties am I realizing my right to enjoy my place on this planet, in my family, in my society, everywhere. So now the last one is the greatest philosophical idea to come out of India, which sustains it, is the principle of non-duality. There is only one God or one divinity, but there may be many paths to go there. You go by one way, I go by another way. So in India, nobody asks you really if you are going to a temple or a church. You are free. You are a seeker. Find out the truth according to your light. And so nobody is going to say, did you go to the temple today? Did you go to the church today? If you don't go, nobody is interested. If you say, I don't believe in God, nobody is going to bother you. So this kind of freedom has the responsibility on the individual to find his own truth, his own divinity, his own God, his own goal, his own enlightenment. So coming specifically to the environment, we find that in India, from time immemorial, I was wondering at the wonderful graphics that were shown just before in Colombia. I will try to go and visit those places. They are enchanting. Now, in India, everything is considered sacred. When you want to preserve something, you elevate it to the level of sacredness so that you don't disturb it, you don't destroy it. Now, for example, the lady from Africa was presenting the eagle. That's a wonderful example. In India, the rivers are worshipped. The plants are worshipped. Indeed, one of the leaves of the basil is kept on the head of one of the gods. In other words, a lowly leaf is given the position of a crown on the head of a god. Then we have the bulls, cows, snakes, eagles, swans, even a lowly mouse is given the status of the vehicle to a god. In other words, no creature is unimportant. Even mountains are sacred. Lord Shiva lives on Mount Kailasa. So not only the living creatures, but the non-living are also sacred. This is, in short, the respect that India shows to nature and the environment. And most importantly, the human beings are not separate from nature. They are part and parcel of nature. Unlike the English, who think they are apart from nature, they can plunder, they can mine anything like there is no tomorrow. So humans are endowed with the wisdom to realize their place in the universe and in the immediate surroundings and take care and become trustees, not plunderers, trustees of nature, preserve the beauty and sacredness of nature. So now, Claudia, may I request you to present that icon? Yes, this is the picture of Lord Dattatreya, one of the gods. I would like you to see there is water. Of course, you all know God brooded over waters and brought forth life. That's what the Bible says. Here, all the elements can be seen. The plants, the animals, the Lord himself with the lotus and the mountains and the water. In other words, God does not exist without the environment. He created the environment and he lives in it. One reason why we should treat everything as sacred. This is a total picture of the relationship between men, people, gods, animals, plants, they all coexist. Nothing is separate. Everything is connected. Now, will you kindly go to the next one, please? This is, I hope I'm not running out of time. This is the greatest symbol that humanity has invented. This is the opinion of Rodin, the greatest sculptor of modern world. He said, this picture of Lord Nataraja, Lord of Dance. Incidentally, this picture is near the CERN building in Switzerland, where the most modern advances in science are examined. And this iconographic picture of Lord Shiva, the dancing Lord, it is considered scientifically harmonious. It is most advanced. And I would now describe, please concentrate when I point out a particular part of this, and then I will give a very brief explanation of it. Aldous Huxley, as well as Rodin, have praised this particular icon or symbol. Nataraja means Lord of the dance of creation and destruction, and all that is in between. Shiva is the cosmic dancer. Figure of dancing Shiva standing within a great circle with flames going out symbolizes mass, energy, space, and time. That is to say, the material world. It denotes the cycle. All time is cyclical. Endless big bangs of creation and destruction. The long hair, which reaches to the ends of the universe on both sides, reaching out, is the hair of a yogin or contemplator, knowledge of everything, extending to the whole universe. Hair also symbolizes the sacred waters of the river Ganges. You will notice that the figure has 4 arms. The upper right arm, holding the drum, is the rhythm of creation. The drum summons all things to come into creation. Lord Shiva is summoning the whole universe into creation. Left arm holds the fire, which denotes destruction. So he is the creator, he is the destroyer. Creation and destruction, again and again, endless. The lower right arm is assuring everyone that everything is fine. Do not be afraid. Everything is fine and in its own place. Do not be afraid. The other arm points to the feet and the legs. The raised foot is symbolic of spiritual contemplation. The foot, if you notice very closely, there is a human being, not very attractive, very haughty and nasty and ugly. And Lord Shiva is crushing it. And that human being suggests ego, ahankara, the kind of all destructive emotions. So we have to control, in order to come to the level of contemplation and spiritual realization, we have to crush our ego, our undesirable qualities. So the foot of the ugly dwarf reminds us that we must control the ego. Dancing Shiva is cosmological, psychological, and spiritual. Shiva dances when he is happy, when he is in ecstasy. He dances also when he is furious, when everything has gone wrong with the world by our own actions. So he will bring destruction, and then he will create the world again to see if we can manage it better next time. The wonderful thing about it is, in this one great symbol, we see all the opposites: creation, destruction, knowledge, ignorance, ego, balance and movement, creator, spectator. The Lord is the creator. At the same time, he is also the spectator. So, but I would like to leave you with this lasting impression on this icon. Look at the balance, the perfection. Everything is in balance. Any dancer will know the importance of balance. So what this one means to me and should mean to everyone is, let us find the balance within us, between the body, mind, and spirit. Let us find the balance in nature, between us and nature. Let us find balance between our despair and ecstasy. Let us be moderate. Let us be measured. Let us have balance. When we find that balance within us, there is balance everywhere in the universe. And that is the way we should treat our relationship with our external sources and internal sources. So with these eternal values, I have been living. I talk to my plants every day. I smile at my flowers. They talk back to me. Some people may think I'm crazy, but you have to connect. You have to find a vibrational level with everything around you and find the peace within you then there is nothing ugly in the world, nothing evil in the world, and everything is in perfect balance. So let us dance to the dance of Shiva. Thank you, Claudia. I'm very honored to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to introduce Robert McDonlad. I was told he was from Manitoba, so welcome, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the invitation, and appreciate really being with each of you here today. As Claudia has already indicated, I mean, what you're sharing, your knowledge is universal. We need to share our knowledge. We need to be able to educate others about our background, about our history, and about our connection with Mother Earth. And I'm looking forward to doing a short presentation with you. I have a video that I'd like to share with you, as well as a PowerPoint presentation, talking a little bit about my background as a Métis, about my ancestors, where they came from, and where we are today in today's world. And I hope that I'm able to share my my screen with you here in just a few moments. But first off, I'd like to extend my appreciation to Claudia for the invitation to be part of the Wisdom Mural and a part of this working group. It's extremely important for the Métis within Canada to be recognized as an Indigenous peoples, as nation builders, as important contributors to Canada where we are here today. And I also, though, would like to acknowledge the fact that we are on the unceded territory of the Algonquin territory, and to acknowledge our brothers and sisters in the First Nation community, as well as the Inuit community. So without further ado, I want to see if I can load up my PowerPoint presentation and give you a little bit of my background about who I am, a little bit about our background as Métis people. So what I do is I am Métis from Manitoba, and just in the last number of years here, I've been talking about our Métis background, our Métis history, through a presentation that I call Métis in Canada, Past to Present, where we focus a little bit on where we came from as an Indigenous peoples, because you need to know where you came from before you know where you're going. That's one of the common sayings that we have within the Indigenous world. And we talk a lot about our I guess the spokespersons for the Métis Nation, led by Louis Riel in the Manitoba region, and Gabrielle Dumont. Both of these people are talked about quite a bit. They were the ones who basically blazed the trail for the Métis in the early 1800s, got us to where we are today. When you talk about Indigenous peoples, when you talk about Aboriginal peoples of Canada, though, we are talking about three groups in particular. The First Nations, who were here first here in Canada, the Inuit, who were in the northern regions, and then the Métis, who are a product of the First Nation people. When you talk about who the Métis are in particular, I will go through a definition here just in a few moments. The Métis Nation and the Métis leadership said, in order to be a Métis person, you have to identify yourself as a Métis person. We come from distinct Indigenous communities and of historic Métis Nation ancestry, and who are accepted by the Métis Nation. Now, when you talk about who a Métis person here is in Canada, it's the joining of a First Nation woman and a European man, whether we're from Scotland, Ireland, England, France. It's the joining of a First Nation woman and a European man, and the offspring had mixed blood. And Métis are known, when you take a look at the definition that was adopted by the French way back in the 1600s, that definition means mixed blood, the joining of a First Nation woman and a European man. So when you talk about my background, my family background, we came from Stornoway, Scotland. My great-great-grandfather and his brother were looking for opportunities to leave Scotland, which in the 1800s was very, very poor. So they were looking for opportunities in a new land to start a new life. And so the Hudson Bay Company came knocking, and they had a fur trading boat in which they went to Scotland and asked anyone who was interested in starting Canada as a country to start building Canada. And so my great-great-grandfather and his brother came aboard a Hudson Bay fur trading boat, and they settled in a place in Saskatchewan called Fort Pelly, which was a fur trading post. And when they were there, they married First Nation women from the region. And of course, as I indicated, the offspring were mixed blood. On the left-hand side, that's my grandfather, actually. And you can see he's pretty white. He's as Scottish as they come, as they say. And he married a Ojibwe woman from central Manitoba. And together, they raised a family of 7. My grandfather had one of the largest trap lines in Manitoba at one point in time, measuring about 20 miles by 20 miles in size. And so they were right away connected to the land, connected to the fur trade. And that's what my family background, my family roots, we were connected to the land right away. My dad, you can see him in the middle. He was a hunter as well, but he also loved to fish. And so when you take a look at the definition, again, of who a Métis is prior to the crystallization of Canada as a nation, it was the joining of an Indian woman or a First Nation woman and European men. And while the initial offspring of these Indian and European unions were individuals who possessed mixed ancestry, eventually we developed our own communities, our own way of life, very much influenced by our First Nation brothers and sisters, as well as other European cultures and backgrounds. But we developed our own language, which is a combination of French and a lot of the Indigenous First Nation influences as well. And the language became known as Michif. And of course, we had all of these communities that started to be set up that were known as Métis communities. We had our own music, our own dress, our own dance known as jigging. We also developed our own music with the fiddle, and we had all kinds of things that set us aside as unique from First Nations as well as Inuit here in Canada. So we had these distinct communities that started forming along the Great Lakes of Ontario into the prairie provinces, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, north into the Northwest Territories, and south into the United States, into some of the regions such as North Dakota, Montana, and the Dakota region as well. So Métis were eventually drawn to Western Canada by the fur trade. And there were 2 fur trading companies in Western Canada, the Hudson Bay Company, which was owned by the British government, and the Northwest Company, which is owned by the French government. And so the Métis, who were hunters and trappers and fishers, were trading with these 2 companies, and they would trade their buffalo, they would trade all kinds of different furs, and they would also trade what was known as pemmican, which is like beef jerky today. And that was something that the Métis found very early was very valuable on the trail, because beef jerky or pemmican became very important to sustain those who were out hunting and trapping on the prairie provinces, in the prairie provinces. So many settlers started coming into Western Canada as the government of Canada tried to settle the West. And of course, many of those were Scottish settlers, Irish settlers were all pushing in to the prairie provinces and looking for opportunities to be able to build their own lives in Western Canada. This is where the Métis settlement was mainly established. This is known as the homeland of the Métis region, which is in southern Manitoba in what they called the Red River Settlement in 1870. So you can see there are English and French communities there. And Manitoba, by the way, became the 5th province in Canada. And my great-great-grandfather had connections to the Red River region. And so we talked about Gabriel Dumont. He was known as the chief buffalo hunter. He would lead all the buffalo hunters as they organized themselves to go on the big hunt. At times there would be like several hundred Métis who would go out and hunt and trap, and they were led by Gabriel Dumont. So I wanted to share with you a very short video, which when the Métis were settling the West, they were often treated not very well. And so many of us, when we grew up, we did not have any connection to our Métis background, our Métis history, because a lot of people were afraid to identify themselves as Métis. They were ashamed as well. And so what we've been trying to do here in the Métis Nation is we've tried to today connect our youth to what it was like to be a Métis voyageur and what it was like to hunt and trap and trade furs that had been traded with the Hudson Bay Company and the Northwest Company.
Métis youth set out paddling across the Canadian heartland, 2,300 kilometers, 52 days, from Thunder Bay, Ontario to Batoche, Saskatchewan. And another group of trekkers will set out from Batoche by horse and wagon. Their destination, an historic farm near Edmonton, Alberta, soon to become a Métis cultural and historical interpretive center. 2 different journeys, both retracing routes traveled by their Métis ancestors. Both will showcase their proud Métis culture. For the participants themselves, it'll be a journey of rediscovery. For many, this will be the first time they'll experience the physical and mental struggles faced by their ancestors. It's early July, and along the historic Red River, a group of 7 youth from the Métis Nation of Ontario have piloted their canoe from Thunder Bay, edging their way toward Manitoba's capital city. Winnipeg is about the halfway point of their journey, retracing the footsteps of their Métis ancestors.
It's pretty exciting to know that for hundreds, thousands of years, our ancestors have traveled these paths. And, you know, when we find a campsite, we might be going for 30 kilometers or more and not find a campsite, and we find a beautiful place. And you know what? 200 years ago, it would have been the same. It's very possible it could have been the very same way the voyageurs would have done.
You ready? As the modern-day voyageurs prepare to leave for a short day's paddle to the heart of the city of Winnipeg, nature is not on their side. The Red River is bursting at its banks, and the forecast is not good. It means these voyageurs will be paddling against the current for the rest of the trip. July 23rd, the horses are harnessed, the wagons loaded, ready to begin a 600-kilometer trek that will take them along the historic fur trading routes of the Carleton Trail. It's an ambitious 34-day project to retrace the trail followed by their Métis ancestors centuries earlier. They plan to arrive at Métis Crossing in time for the opening of the new interpretive center. Today, as the official speeches end, the journey begins. They'll stop in communities along the way to share their culture, their history, their music, and their friendship.
To respect their elders, because that was the whole reason we brought them here, was so that they could be part of something to do, like living like our ancestors did. And they worked with a lot of elders and a lot of other people. And our biggest thing that we tried to press on them was respect your elders, respect everyone.
And I believe youth that participate in things like this, it will, I think, give them a focus where they will want to continue to participate within the Métis community.
The trek arrives on Onion Lake Reserve along the Saskatchewan-Alberta border.
Métis. I'm still learning more about what it means to be Métis and what the whole culture is about. But it seems like it's a pretty big thing to be Métis, and it's a pretty special and unique thing too in Canada to be a part of that history and a part of where we've come from.
All right, so there you go. Young Métis voyageurs following the waterways, and they've done that actually ever since 2006. That was the first time that the young voyageurs jumped on the boats and wanted to get the experience that the ancestors had, and of course those as well who went along the Carleton Trail from Winnipeg to Edmonton, and to get the feeling of what it was like to trade their furs and to travel through Western Canada. So that's our way of trying to teach our young people, trying to get connected to the land, which is exactly what our history is about. It's about respecting the land. It's about, feeling what it's like to be out there with the animals and having the wind blow through your hair, and to see the land for what it can offer each and every one of us. We have to show so much respect. And there are celebrations as well, which happen right in the middle of the prairie provinces. One of those celebrations is Back to Batoche Days that happens every third week of July, in which members of the Métis Nation get together, they camp out on the land, they have these celebrations, and they pay respect to our elders, as well as our veterans, as well as our youth. And other celebrations include St. Madeleine Métis Days that happen in July every year as well. So we definitely have to pay a lot of respect to those who came before us. And by the way, in case you didn't know, Manitoba's 150th birthday is this year. And this past year, the Métis Nation held virtual celebrations, and Manitoba became the 5th province of Canada under the provisional government and the leadership of Louis Riel, who was the leader in the Red River region in 1870. And you can see here's a silver coin that was created by the Canadian Royal Canadian Mint to commemorate the celebrations. And Canada Post also put together a stamp. You can see this is the government of Louis Riel in 1870. Louis Riel himself said that my people will sleep for 100 years, and when they awake, it will be the artists and the artisans who give them back their spirit. Remember, I said many people who were Métis back in the 1800s and early 1900s were afraid to say you're Métis, and they were afraid to speak up and celebrate their culture and their history because of the fact that they were not treated very well. But Louis Riel said they will wake up. And I can tell you today that many of us within the Métis world are very proud to say that we are Métis. Today we are celebrating that, the fact that we are part of the Indigenous peoples of Canada. And as I indicated, I don't know if you can see my screen again. Can you see me on screen? Okay, so if you can see me back on screen again, this is the infinity flag, and it means the joining of 2 cultures, First Nation woman and a European man, and the blood will flow through our veins forever. I want to thank you once again for the opportunity to talk a little bit about my background and about our history. So thank you again.
As you, Grandmother Francine, I would love to stay here like for 2 days asking questions about all the teachings, about all the meanings and messages. I think there's so much we could learn from each other. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart.